On everybody, I'm live. I'm alive, and I hope all the boys, girls, and everybody's having a fantastic one because today's a beautiful day. Today's a wonderful day. It's not. It's not a beautiful day, wonderful day. It's. I did the double intro because I was too busy getting my coffee because my entire life is falling apart because I did not steal an F-16, but as you guys know, I have a morning ritual. I'm very autistic about following my process. I need to have my two double espresso shots in the beginning of the day, and I didn't get to have them, and that's why everything is falling apart. Because obviously, the Amer-Israeli World War Epstein that we've been talking about for the past week is finally here. It's happening. America and Israel last night struck Iran. The nation state of Iran, with 93 million population, America and Israel have officially launched an attack on Iran. World War E. World War Epstein is here. And there's still motherfuckers out here who will be like, oh my God. Like, I saw a news hit on NPR talking about how Jean-Luc Mélenchon said Epstein. And in France, they're talking about how anti-Semitic it is that Jean-Luc Mélenchon said Epstein. Like, I need people to get fucking serious right now. Okay? I need people to get fucking serious. Conversations surrounding, like, the utilization of the term goyim. Conversations around, you know, how American feelings are going to be hurt in this process. Conversations around standpoint epistemology about how the Persian monarchists feel about striking a totally fucking foreign sovereign country with 93 million people. All of those conversations are utterly immaterial, utterly irrelevant, and I am not going to have any fucking, I am not going to give any room for dumb fucking bullshit like that today. Let's be real. America and Israel are functionally, and I think it's pretty understandable for the average person with a heart and conscience and a soul to see this, like, from the perspective of anyone that's living in the periphery. America and Israel are basically the great Satan, right? Like, I live here. I'm an American citizen. I'm a dual citizen as an American and Turkish citizen. But, like, you kind of look at what we have done around the world, and you start developing certain feelings where you're like, well, I mean, I guess there were KPD guys in Nazi Germany before the Nazis took power, right? Like, there was the SPD, there's a KPD. There were people who were anti-fascist, they were infighting. We must learn from those lessons. My point is, just because you're an American doesn't mean that you can't comprehend that we are the great white devil. You know? Like, there were plenty of historical figures of note, of notoriety, of worth that lived in these countries that we now know are historically evil countries, like Nazi Germany, once again, where people did actually resist. People did actually recognize the real danger that fascism presented, and people tried to fight back to the best of their ability. And try to thwart the development of fascism in these countries. I'm just saying, I'm thinking about different historical periods. Now, of course, the fucking Reich never had nuclear arms. They never had burgers either. So we are in a different predicament, right? We're in the Burger Reich predicament, nuclear armed Burger Reich situation, 800 military bases around the world, no real international competitors when it comes to warfare, and we're this towering, domineering force all around the globe. We just destroy whoever we see fit, and all of our enemies. We will kill all of their children, and we'll sit there and we'll sell you, we'll package you this idea as though it's for some kind of emancipatory purpose. And that's precisely what America is doing. And they're not even doing it that good in comparison to previous attempts of imperialism. Not to say that this is, somehow making things better. Obviously, I would never say that. But like in comparison to the Trump administration, when compared to the Bush administration, as far as like a sophisticated messaging apparatus that justified why we had to go to Iraq and bomb Iraq and invade Iraq and take all the juicy, delicious oil from the ground in Iraq. The Bush administration makes the Trump administration look like fucking savages. The George W. Bush administration and the neocons of the past make this current administration look like barbaric apes. Like they were monsters, but they at least had a sophisticated tool and a propaganda apparatus that tried to package this illegal and unjust war that displaced tens of millions of people, a 20-plus year occupation, specifically at the behest of empire, at the behest of capital. And now the Trump administration doesn't even see a purpose in doing that. Why is this important? It's important because I hate to report this to you, chatter, but you and I, we're fucking cattle. We're cattle. That's it. They don't see the need to ask us for our consent on this. At least in the past, they would make it feel like we were involved in some way. They would try to coerce us into getting involved. They would try to manufacture consent. But the reality of the matter is we are cattle and our consent is not necessary because our tools of fighting back against the masters have been destroyed. They have been completely destroyed. Do you understand? What I'm talking about is labor unions, labor militancy, an understanding of class, an understanding that wars at the behest of empire, wars at the behest of capital are not actually conducted for the working class's needs, but instead are conducted by the working class, because it'll be the working class that goes out and fucking dies in those boats. It'll be the working class that gets blown up in the periphery. There's no understanding of that anymore in America. There's no understanding of that anymore in the Western world. Mark Carney, I spit on you. You fucking son of a bitch. You came out in Davos. You said middle powers need to rise up and dignify themselves and develop sovereignty for themselves. We will no longer be bullied. Why? Because Donald Trump said he was going to treat white European countries like he treats nations in the periphery. For once, you saw middle powers speak out, or at least Mark Carney spoke out. Mark Carney's speaking today as well. He spoke out today. He said, Israel has a right to defend itself. So do I think this is overall a bad thing? Do I think that the Western world and the international consortium of collaborative finance capital dominating every aspect of our lives and constantly waging war, constantly fucking killing people, constantly throwing orphans under the orphan crushing machine, all at the behest of the almighty dollar, so that a hand-selected tiny sliver of the population makes unlimited super profits. Do I think that that's an overall bad thing? Yes, I do. I do think that's an overall bad thing. I do. I think it's a disaster. It is unacceptable. It's a disaster of epic proportions. It's unlimited super violence. Anyway, but we're going to cover it. But that's why I'm live early. Okay? I'm live early because you think any good will come from it, like a byproduct of violence? And maybe one day, if the American empire falls as a consequence of the war of attrition, as a consequence of spreading itself too thin all around the globe, as it tries to maintain dominance, as it tries to hold on to its hegemony. One day, the American empire will crumble. It will be very painful for everyone living in the imperial core. It will be very painful for, it will be even more painful for those who actually have to exist outside of the imperial core. But eventually, change will come. Um, one can hope. It's just the reality. I hope you're ready for an ungodly amount of freaks in the chat. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. Are they doing boots on the ground? I'm not super tapped in. No, they're not going to. I mean, not for the time being. It's entirely dependent on how much of a resistance the Iranian government can put up. How much of a resistance the Iranian government can put up. How much Iran can punish Israel. How much Iran can punish American airstrike, American carriers in the region. I'm going to get into all of that right now. But let's get started. U.S. and Israel launch an attack on Iran.
Rocked multiple cities across Iran, including its capital, Tehran. Videos from Tehran show smoke. You see it here billowing over the city. And now we're getting reports of explosions in Gulf Arab countries hosting U.S. military bases. Live look now at Abu Dhabi, where explosions were reported, in addition to Bahrain and Qatar. A video now of an explosion in Bahrain. Officials say a missile hit the service center of the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet in the country. These strikes happen barely a day after the latest round of indirect nuclear talks between Iran and the U.S. And sources tell CNN the U.S. military is planning for these attacks to last for days. Israel said the same, and both President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are now calling for regime change.
To the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations.
Yeah, Iran media reported just hours ago that Iran...
Bro, our heart's not in it. Our heart's not in it. You know what I mean? It's like in order to do this kind of like regime change, you have to come in with boots on the ground. And maybe they will try and do that, but I do think that that will inevitably lead to the end of America. Okay? It will certainly lead to the end of Iran as we know it, but I think it will also lead to the end of America. What's remarkable about that is the admission that American sons and daughters will die, right? Because, I mean, we're slaves. We're all slaves. We're wage slaves of a different sort. We're all slaves to empire at the end of the day. Especially some of the poorest who thought that they could get a fucking comms degree, you know what I mean, for free. An amenity pretty much offered by every other competent social democracy, the opportunity for upward social mobility that's given to every single citizen unconditionally. In the United States of America, you have to become a slave to the Pentagon, and you have to go and, sell your soul to the American government so you can go and you can slaughter other people's sons and daughters overseas. You got to go kill some children, and then you get fucked up in the head. Hopefully you don't get your dick shot off while protecting a poppy field, right, for JSOC, so they can actually keep doing clandestine operations and drug trafficking, stuff like that, right? So you come back to the United States of America with crippling PTSD, and then you get a fucking comms degree so you can have your job, if you're lucky enough to get one, by the way, then you can have your job be stolen by artificial intelligence. So some fucking faceless, lifeless, dickhead billionaire can turn can turn on the GDP machine and make a little bit more money. year over year, and it's fucking awesome. And then you sit around angry and you think to yourself, well, I have an unlimited arsenal of weapons. Will I actually organize? Will I actually topple the system? No, I'm just going to either kill myself and my family, or I'm just going to take the arsenal of weapons that I have and shoot up the nearest fucking kindergarten. That's just the average American existence. And then we sit around and think, oh, well, as long as this domineering force that is like broadly defined as American empire is killing other school children overseas, I feel a little powerful, right? People sit there, eat their potato chips at home in their crusty boxers and watch their favorite fucking incel, decrepit Twitch streamers and think, no, this force projection is good. It makes me feel fucking good. Well, your life sucks. Your life sucks. You have no freedom. You're fucking cattle. You are literally a goddamn slave. Some of you are slaves without actually even working, but that's just the reality, right? I myself am a part of this process as well. I play a role in this fucking sham. I play a role in this song and dance as well. I try to yell. I try to wake people up to these realities, but for the most part, you know, it's very difficult. It's very difficult for people to even envision any sort of change because we have been reduced to being servile cattle for many, many years at this point. Many generations ago. I'll just hit this early.
May Allah awaken the people and help them to see the evil doings of Israel and the United States.
Oh, inshallah, one day. In any case, here, you want to see who you're doing this for. Remember why this is happening. When gas prices shoot up because the Strait of Hormuz is now officially mined and dammed and closed, and that's like 10% of fucking all global oil commerce that won't happen any longer. And all of a sudden you're at the fucking pump and you're like, why is gas $15 a gallon? How did this happen? Remember who you're fighting for. When you think to yourself, why don't I have healthcare? Like countries that have significantly less money than the United States of America can offer free healthcare. Well, they have free healthcare in Israel. For the record, they have free healthcare in Israel. Just so you know, they don't have to worry about defense, for example. You want to know why they don't have to fucking worry about defense? Because we got that shit covered, baby. USS Gerald Ford, the poop chute, is encircling the Israeli coastline so we can have maximum defense for Israel as we fight Israel's war in Iran. Just, remember that. Anyway, I think this is an older video from the last time Israel fucking tried to blow up Iran, and then Iran decided to retaliate. Working class magic. Did you see Israel responded to you? Oh, great. There's no such thing as a preemptive strike, I said. Israel is striking Iran in spite of the negotiations that the Oman mediators tried to publicize in the U.S. media to avoid this exact outcome. Little did they know Israel gets what it desires, even if it collapses the West. That's awesome. I'll be sending that GIF back when people are talking about how scared they are in the bomb shelters.
Already launched dozens of ballistic missiles at Israel. And Qatari officials say that Qatar already intercepted 2 Iranian missiles indicating Iran is carrying out that plan to retaliate. And our team is up and covering this breaking story from around the world. We'll get to Zach Cohen and Elena Treen in just a moment, but I want to start with CNN's Jeremy Diamond first. He's in Tel Aviv. Jeremy, have any of the Iron Dome intercepted any of those missiles? Is there a timing on when those might arrive?
Well, we certainly know that Iran has already fired a barrage of ballistic missiles at Israel. We had sirens going off not only here in Tel Aviv, but also in Jerusalem, in northern Israel, in southern Israel, pretty much Israelis everywhere across the country, millions heading to bomb shelters as those ballistic missiles came in. It does appear that there were several intercepts. We have not yet gotten reports of any actual impacts as a result.
Okay. So the short and sweet of it is, last night at around 10:30 p.m. Pacific time, as I was laying in bed trying to close my eyes to wake up and work out early in the morning and go live with the hopes that, like, Iran had still not been struck, I found out that Iran had, as a matter of fact, been struck by Israel and the United States of America. Okay? They tried to do an early decapitation strike, hit numerous cities from Isfahan to Tehran and many others. They blew up schools because obviously Israel can't fucking not blow up schools. Like, I need you to understand, if Israel doesn't fucking blow up a school every week, they will literally implode. Do you want Israel to implode? Do you want Israel to kill themselves? Do you want the Israeli government to engage in collective suicide? How anti-Semitic of you. Okay? How anti-Semitic of you to think these thoughts. Of course Israel has to fucking kill school children overseas. Israel has to kill school children on a weekly fucking basis. Do you understand? They have to do it. They have to do it. This is the only way to liberate the masses, okay? The Israeli economy runs on exploded school children, and some school children have to fucking die. 40 elementary school schoolgirls killed, 9 to 13 years old. Thank you, Israel. Thank you, America. In any case, they did all of that, and then Iran retaliated. And this retaliation is different from the 12-day war. You will never get the full scope of exactly what's going on if you go on fucking Twitter, unless you know exactly what to look for, because the entire information apparatus on social media is polluted with bots, polluted with human beings that operate like fucking bots. Okay? It's insane. Misinformation of epic magnitudes. And no, the Gulf states are not actually receiving the brunt of this impact. The Gulf states that have American radar systems inside of American fucking bases inside of the Gulf states are receiving the brunt of the impact, with the exception of Dubai. Dubai has actually received a little bit more, and maybe some of the Gulf states will receive even more of the bombing. But so far, the reason why I say it's a little bit different than the 12-day war is because Iran immediately retaliated by striking American radar systems in Bahrain, in the UAE, in Qatar. And they've actually effectively taken out multiple billions of dollars worth of radar systems and early advance warning systems that the American government has designed all around the region. Now, of course, America knew this was going to happen, just so you know, because that is going to yield tremendous prosperity for the military-industrial complex. You blow up $2 billion worth of radar systems, but guess what? That means we got to rebuild. That means new contracts. That means new fucking contractors. That means new workers that will fly out into the Gulf and hastily rebuild these military bases. So that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. America knew that was going to happen. That's why they brought in their entire AWACS fleet, the aerial surveillance systems that we have at our disposal, created by Lockheed Martin, created by Boeing as well. These surveillance systems are flying around. All around, basically in like a perfect single file line from Iran all the way to Israel to protect, of course, the Holy Land, the most important country on the planet. Not your state, not Wyoming. The only state in the United States of America that matters, the state of Israel. So, you know, just remember that. Every single Gulf country is being hammered currently that have American bases that are being hammered fucking currently and presently. They are destroying billions of dollars of American equipment inside of American bases. I've seen videos in Bahrain of even Shahed drones blowing up the American base. Shahed drones can be shot down with an AK-47. That's how little America gives a shit about its goddamn assets in the region. If you wanted to, if you're wondering what the situation looks like, Shahed drones are so fucking slow, you can shoot them down with an AK-47. And they're currently striking. They're currently striking American bases in Bahrain. The naval base in Bahrain is being struck. Okay? Iranian drone hits the vicinity of Burj Khalifa in Dubai. The IRGC has officially announced the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. The economy about to buckle. Inshallah, the economy will buckle. These people that lead these countries are fucking animals. Do you understand? They're animals. They do not care about you. We are going to suffer as a consequence of their actions, but they only fucking respond. They only respond to force. They only respond to military deterrence. They only respond to pressure. And it's literally, we have to be the pressure. We have to be the pressure. We have to take it to the streets. We have to fucking protest. We have to put an end to this kind of action. We have to demand an end, sever ties with Israel. We have to demand an end to American imperialism. It's done. Okay? It's done. There is no other way out of this. Note the book on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's desk during this call today with the President Trump is historian Tim Bouvier's book, Allies at War, about how the Allies defeated Hitler in World War II. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu during his conversation with U.S. President real Donald Trump. I bet his bitch ass is fucking having that conversation in some Greek military facility too. Drone strike in Dubai. Yeah, Israel is fucking, not Israel, sorry. Iran is pummeling Dubai. If you noticed, out of all the Gulf countries, like Dubai is getting hit the hardest. This to me shows that there's a reason, right? Like they are very deliberate about who they are attacking and why they're attacking the countries that they are attacking. Dubai is obviously, the UAE is obviously Muslim Israel. For those of you who don't fucking know, I know many of you think, oh no, that's like a pedophile cryptocurrency safe haven. That's basically in Miami. The UAE's foreign policy and like regional leadership is basically to be the Muslim version of Israel. Okay. They're right there. Whenever Israel's doing stuff, Dubai and the UAE is right there. Okay. And for the record, Iran did warn every other country in the region. Iran did say, if you do this, it will be a regional war. If you do this, if you back us into a corner, we will fight back. And of course, you know, that is the case. Again, that's a Shahed drone. Like, that's crazy. Oh my God. Bro, you really actually don't need like I was thinking about this with like the Afghanistan, the Taliban, Pakistan fight that was taking place. And I was really thinking about this. You really don't need suicide bombing anymore. You know, because like the Taliban guy was like, oh, you have nuclear arms, but we have like suicide bombers. Like, we'll just blow up your country with suicide bombers. And it's like, you really don't need that anymore in drone warfare, right? You don't need that at all. Just make fucking drones. You can purchase them from, you can purchase them in the online marketplace. Like, China literally sells like explosive ordnance delivery mechanisms that you can put to a DJI drone that you can purchase like at virtually no significant cost in comparison to like, you know, sophisticated equipment that you need to put together. So I guess like you kind of at that point you're doing that for the love of the game, right? Like you're doing suicide bombing just for the love of the game because like you want to keep it old school. Is that what it is? Why is bro saying that? I'm just saying it's like insane that I mean this is functionally what you could get away with if you facilitated like a somewhat difficult to pull off suicide bombing strike, right? And instead you're just using a Shahed drone that's like what, $10,000? It's crazy. It's crazy how terrifying this process is. Anyway. But isn't suicide bombers cheaper than drones? Yeah, but it's there's no guarantee. A suicide bombing campaign is an incredibly difficult thing to pull off, dude. First of all, you need people that are diehard zealots, quite literally. The IEDs are like not very expensive. They're not very sophisticated. But at the end of the day, like pulling off a successful suicide bombing operation is really fucking difficult. You need to have a human asset on the ground. Drones, on the other hand, yeah, sure, it's like 10 grand. Like a Shahed drone specifically is like $10,000 or whatever. But you know, you don't have like there. It's not. It's has a much higher success rate and more ordnances, more explosive ordnances on the drone itself. That's crazy. They're just doing like they're doing piecemeal Shahed strikes on residential buildings, dude. This is the Al Udeid radar system before and after the strike. Yeah, what was and what became. This is like $1.5 billion, I think. Satellite images show the destruction of an American radar at the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar as a result of targeted operations by Iran. First, they crippled the American early warning systems like this. And America let it happen, by the way. Just so you understand, if you are living in one of these, if you're living in one of these Gulf countries, that's in Bahrain. This is fake. Look at the buildings in the bottom. No, they did strike at the Al Udeid base, though. I don't know if this is like... what do you call it? I don't know if this image is fake or not, but they did actually strike the Iranians did strike the Al Udeid Air Base radar. They did actually do that. The photo itself might be fake. I'm saying the photo itself that you guys sent me might be fake, but they did strike the radar base in Qatar. Like there is literally a fucking video of it. You know, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. This is the one in Bahrain. The first round, the first round of strikes came towards the Gulf states, and immediately they went in and struck all of the American bases that have early warning systems, radars in all of the Gulf states. And then after they were done, after they were done with that, they have not stopped pummeling Israel as well. All this is a distract from the Epstein files? No joke? No, brother. No. This is not a distraction from the Epstein files. This is a 50-year project for Israel. This is so much more consequential than the fucking Epstein files. Like, this is not even that's crazy. This is a 50-year project by Israel. This is a project that also corresponds to American interests in the region in general. They've always wanted no sovereignty for Iran. They always wanted the Iranian oil as well. America has always wanted to have complete monopoly over the cartel, OPEC plus. Obviously, you have state actors that are not always going to be compliant, but as long as you have some servile Gulf nation states like Saudi Arabia, like UAE, and then you also destroy Iran or remove Iranian sovereignty or completely take over the Iranian oil refinery process, then you have a significant upper hand in this cartel. You can control the petrodollar to the best of your ability. You can use it as a significant point of leverage against your foreign adversaries like China. This is 50 years in the making. This isn't a new thing at all, and it's finally happening because Israel has lost all of its Western support. So this is perhaps the last time that they can do it. Okay? This is the last time that Israel will be able to do this. From their perspective, Trump is crazy enough to follow through on it. This is a final act of desperation, in my opinion. This is the grand design in the region coming to a close. So however much America, like if Iran is capable of putting up a strong front and a strong resistance against this, make it as difficult and as costly as possible for America to engage in this war of attrition while destabilizing the entire global economy, which they have the capability to do, America will most likely collapse. I just don't see any clean way out of this. As I talked about with Ben Rhodes earlier this week, ironically enough, Ben Rhodes, National Security Advisor to Barack Obama, who played a significant role in the JCPOA, the Iran denuclearization deal. One of the conversations that we had was obviously around America and Israel's interest in Iran. We talked about how it was never about denuclearization, and Obama basically proved that because Obama was able to get a successful multilateral deal through with Iran. Iran was willing to negotiate with the United States of America in exchange for sanctions relief. And then Donald Trump came in and ripped that apart in his first term, if you guys remember. And it basically showed anyone with more than 3 working brain cells, and I hope you guys have more than 3 working brain cells, that there was no real negotiation aspect. And it was more so just a way to create a reason to destabilize Iran inevitably. And the reasons for why America and Israel want to destabilize Iran is not because the Iranian people deserve sovereignty and dignity. Although that is true, that's not the reason why America and Israel want to destabilize Iran. So if you're a fucking moron who actually believes that, get the fuck out of my chat, okay? You are the biggest dupe, the biggest sucker. I bet you also think that going to war with Iraq and extracting oil for American oil refineries was probably good for you somehow, personally. You are the biggest loser. You're the biggest dumbass of all time. America does not give a fuck about democracy. America doesn't even give a fuck about democracy in America. America doesn't even care about American citizens. America certainly doesn't even care about American military members. We literally parked 50% of our naval assets in and around Israel and in and around Iran. If you think that we care about what happens to them, you are fucking delusional. Okay? Yeah. You're the guy who goes to the strip club and says, "No, you don't understand. You see, Hasan, the stripper does love me, actually. She told me she loves me. I believe her." You are all, at best, human shields, okay? Your worth to the American government, to the Israeli government, is either a human shield, collateral damage, maybe productive forces if you are productive to a certain degree, you know? What is this? Saved as modded GIF? Do we have a blast off meme, by the way? I didn't even blast off yet. It's 48 minutes in and I just started fucking going in. I was not expecting Iran to fire into like 5 countries right away. I was. Can you explicitly lay out how this benefits US and Israel? I mean, it depends. Are you talking about the working class? Are you talking about the capital owning class? Are you talking about those who are in positions of power? Because like if you're talking about the Epstein class, this benefits them tremendously because you're always moving units, right? Any American base that gets blown up as a consequence of Iran retaliating means, you know, more economic activity. It means more jobs. It means more subsidies from the government. It means more taxpayer funded initiatives to rebuild those bases. So that's extremely beneficial for some key sectors in the United States of America. So that yields economic activity. Every bomb that is used yields economic activity because every bomb that is used must be replenished. That's why, you know, in this day and age, war is not meant to be won. War is meant to simply continue. And it has been continuing. And there is a fairly sophisticated media apparatus that has made you think that war is not happening all the time when it, as a matter of fact, very clearly is happening all the fucking time, right? Whether it be Iran today, or Afghanistan and Iraq yesterday, Libya, Syria, there is constant destabilization taking place. That's happening all the time. Yeah. Also, this is what war looks like for Americans in Bahrain. Bahrain is basically the cushiest job in the Gulf too. Look.
Bro. Oh shit. Oh fuck. Oh shit. Oh.
Like, look at this motherfucker's house, bro. Why is he not scooping up poop inside of the USS Gerald Ford? Why is he fucking sitting? Jamal Bowie is retweeting that you're anti-Semitic and insane on Blue Sky. Jamal Bowie is calling you anti-Semitic and insane on Blue Sky. Oh, fucking discourse machine, dude. Yes. Oh no. Oh no. A New York Times reporter has called me anti-Semitic. A New York Times reporter is calling me anti-Semitic. A New York Times reporter who is a fucking adult, almost 40 fucking years old, and had no statements on Israel and Palestine for 2 fucking years of the genocide at the New York Times. Oh no. Someone alert the presses. Someone has to deal with the real issues. This too is anti-Semitic and also completely insane. Oh, because I said if there's any terrorism that happens on U.S. soil now, you will never be able to convince me nor millions of other Americans that it wasn't Israel and America conducting it together to rally the masses to support an insanely unpopular war. Yeah. Oh no. Oh no. Guys. I need you to understand. Guys. I know that the billionaire pedophilic elite will send your sons and daughters to go die in a region that has never done anything to you whatsoever so they can yield better returns on their initial investments year over year, okay? And we will do it definitely for the nation state of Israel as well, okay? Because they also have like a separate ambition of being able to develop greater Israel as this like biblical fucking project, right? They want to do that, and they can't do that as long as Iran has ballistic missiles. So we have to kill him. We have to kill him. But guess what, guys? Guess what? That could come across as anti-Semitic if you fucking literally call it out. You're not supposed to say that. And because it's deeply unpopular, because it's a deeply unpopular endeavor, because Israel is deeply unpopular, because Donald Trump is deeply unpopular, in an effort to do some sort of fucking crazy psyop on U.S. soil, if they were to do like an anthrax attack, for example, you know, never been done before, never been done before in the United States of America, never been conducted to make everyone in fucking Iowa think that like Al-Qaeda is going to come after them. Not even talking about 9/11 at this point. I'm talking about what came after, right? All the anthrax in the mail saga that universalized the fear that it wasn't just New York, the capital of finance, that was struck, but, you know, my bumfuck shitty town next to Gary, Indiana could also be under attack by Islamic style terrorism. So I'm obviously a lot more fearful and a lot more open-minded to going and waging war in the fucking Middle East. You know? Could never happen. Has never happened and could never happen, you know? Certainly. Someone's got to get on board. It's so insane. Is this Jamel Bowie? Apparently Jamel Bowie reposted this. How is this man so popular? Because everyone went crazy and expertise has been completely eroded, says Joe Steve. Where does this guy work? Assistant professor at U.S. history at UNC Chapel Hill. Political liberal, hoop reactionary. Yeah, this guy's just as big as a piece of shit as his uncle, if not worse in terms of real world influence. How is this anti-Semitic? Yes, there is not a tin hat take to be had on Trump making use of any now more likely attack on U.S. soil to consolidate power. Yeah, like even liberals won't believe this, for the record. Oh, he wrote this article. A liberal's case for conservatives in history departments. Oh, he writes for Quillette. Oh, he writes for the fucking eugenicist magazine Quillette. That makes a lot more sense. Oh, guys. I mean, listen. Guys, you can't say that like Israel is in the driving seat of American foreign policy in the MENA region. You can't say that because that might be scary. That might be, it's not the reality that is scary. It's that might hurt my feelings personally. Okay? What about my feelings? Have you considered my feelings? How I feel? You're making it quite difficult for me to defend these sorts of actions. So I have to fucking turn around and tell you, you're being quite anti-Semitic, my good sir. You're being anti-Semitic, sir. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Get the fuck out of here, dumbass.
Liberal. Yeah,
he reposted the fucking Quillette reporter. Shame on you, Jamel.
Chopping up children's genitals.
Shame on you. Seriously, fucking shame on you, Jamel Bowie. That is fucking bullshit, and you fucking know it. Shame on you. Yeah. Wait till liberals do this exact same thing, but this time for Trump consolidating power, because they only deal in terms of like the Democratic Party's success in elections versus the Republican Party, right? Like they do not deal in the material, and they will literally lean into this stuff when it inevitably happens, okay? They will say, oh, Trump is doing this because he's distracting people from the Epstein files. Trump is doing this because he wants to consolidate power and implement martial law. All of these things also correspond to one another. They're not even separate from one another. These are not like mutually exclusive incidents. Yeah. Why hasn't Jamel Bowie written a single fucking thing about Gaza? I remember a couple years in. I remember a couple years in when at this point it was like a year and a half in, and people were like, hey, Jamel Bowie, we love your takes. Okay? We love your takes, Jamel. Do you have nothing to say about, what Israel is doing? And he was like, oh, I haven't read into it. I haven't read into, like, I don't really know too much about what Israel is doing. No, Jamel Bowie was never a friend of the show. Did you blast off, bro? No, I didn't. Yeah, 85 children have been killed by the Amer-Israeli bombing campaign in Iran. But guys, I need you to understand. My feelings might be hurt in this process because I'm trying to defend that, and you're making it hard for me. You're making it hard for me. What about my feelings? Just a heads up, I couldn't find your stream on mobile and had to search for you on PC. What did I get fucking blacklisted already? No, I doubt it. I was told it was supposed to be Iranian. Oh, Iranian citizens cheering on being bombed? Yeah, no, the Bahrainis are ecstatic. Every video I've seen of like unks in Bahrain filming the American base being struck is them going udrup 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 udrup. Anyway, this is the funniest one. This is the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
مسيرة اضرب 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 اضرب.
That's a radar dome, no? They just straight up took out a fucking a radar system with literally a Shahed drone. That does not happen unless America totally wrote that off, okay? Like, that literally only happened because America was like, yeah, we don't give a fuck. Yeah, blow it up. We'll make a new one. Do you understand? That's a Shahed drone. Look how fucking slow it flies. You can literally shoot that out of the sky with an AK-47, okay? That happened because America wanted that to happen. I need you to understand this. That happened because America wanted that to happen. America wanted you to see that this was going on. That's a $10,000 drone that just destroyed $1 billion of satellite radar equipment. Like radar equipment, it's a SATCOM radome. Yeah, that's your healthcare blowing up, by the way. That's your healthcare blowing up. You just watched your fucking healthcare blowing up. Why would Americans have an AK-47 that's a commie weapon? I'm just saying. That's your taxes being lit on fire. Every time you see one of these fucking things blow up, I need you to think about it like that, okay? Every time you see that, the $1.5 billion radar was destroyed, but this one of the video cost $18 million. Sorry. This is a $18 million radar. Okay, great. Just look at everything that this guy's tweeting. What is this? Current state of the Strait of Hormuz, which has been closed by the IRGC. Yeah, the U.S. Has its own energy. It hurts China more to have it disrupted. Are you not in agreement? Yeah, if you're a postdoc, you can't get grants. If you're a researcher, you can't get funding, right? If you were a public sector employee, you got fired. If you needed SNAP benefits and you were one of the hundreds of thousands that no longer can get that SNAP benefit, you now have to eat less food. But we can go and do this shit. We can go and move 50% of our naval assets, tens of billions of dollars can be spent moving entire islands basically to this region and go to war and blow up fucking school children overseas. It is ridiculous. And quite frankly, I hate to say this over and over again, but we are fucking cattle. Okay, we're cattle. We have nothing to say for this. We have nothing that we can do about this. We have nothing that we can do to organize. That's it. Like we just watch it from afar like it's a fucking movie. And you know, not really much we can do. And this fucking dipshit gets to direct all of those resources. Breaking. The building is in the Grand Air Hotel, which frequently hosts senior U.S. military officers located close to U.S. 5th Fleet headquarters, struck with a Shahed 136. Breaking. Iran's Revolutionary Guards have warned ships over VHF radio that no vessel is allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. An EU Aspides naval mission official told Reuters the strait is a narrow choke point with just 21 to 33 kilometers wide at its tightest between Iran to the north and Oman and UAE to the south. Roughly 20 to 30% of the global seaborne crude oil, about 20 to 21 million barrels per day, moves through it. Major exporters, including Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, the UAE, and Qatar, depend on this single route to supply global markets. Price of oil will go up. Yeah, this was insane, by the way. This is just pure Jewish supremacy, for the record. CNN put out an article 33 minutes ago saying that this attack is for Amalek. This is Tal Shalev, senior reporter at CNN based in Jerusalem, who literally said this attack, this was last night, that this attack was for Amalek and to fulfill the mitzvah of remembering Amalek. Timing of U.S.-Israel attack on Iran bears symbolic meaning in Judaism. The timing of the U.S. and Israeli attack on Iran bears symbolic meaning in Judaism. Ahead of the upcoming Jewish holiday of Purim, worshippers read the specific portion from the Old Testament known as Zachor. The passage from the book of Deuteronomy commands the ancient Israelites to remember an unprovoked attack by the nation of Amalek and to eradicate the memory of Amalek once the Israelites are settled in their land. The passage is read publicly before Purim to fulfill the mitzvah of remembering Amalek as Israel's archetypical enemy. This is literally what Nick Fuentes also says. Benjamin Netanyahu and Nick Fuentes and this lady on CNN are entirely in fucking agreement. Okay? Like, this is Jewish supremacist thought. Okay? Who gives a fuck what some religious text says? What are you, fucking insane? You think I'm supposed to care about this? Are you out of your fucking mind? I care about school children being blown up. I don't want that to happen. There is no justification. This is a pre-Ellison takeover at CNN, by the way. So I don't know what the fuck the Ellisons are going to do to CNN to make it more pro-Israel. Like, is this going to be the only thing? Is this going to be the only thing that fucking comes out of CNN? Yeah. Also, Jeremy Diamond, CNN's Jerusalem correspondent, also last night was calling it a preemptive strike. Israel has launched preemptive strikes against Iran in a state of emergency. There's no such thing, okay? A preemptive strike in almost every single circumstance is just a made-up reasoning for striking first, okay? It can only be considered a preemptive strike if there is like actual information, actual data that there is supposed to be a strike incoming and you want to cut it ahead of time. This is ridiculous. Israel always says they're preemptively striking their enemies. Israel always is preemptively striking their enemies. And the American media always fucking lies at the behest of Israel. They always lie at the behest of Israel. Oh, it's a preemptive strike. Really? Was 9/11 a preemptive strike on American empire? Like, what are we talking about? Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda issued a preemptive strike in the nation's finance capital to the World Trade Center and attempted to engage in a preemptive strike on the Pentagon. Like, is that? No, it's ridiculous, right? It's fucking ridiculous. No, that was not a preemptive strike. Yeah, Israel is preemptively striking school children. You know, preemptively striking them to ensure that they never graduate from middle school. Chill, bro. They will clip this. The fuck do you mean? I keep forgetting that I haven't even blasted off yet. Anyway, does anyone have a blast off meme, I guess? I don't even know at this point. Jesus Christ. It's 9 a.m. Yeah. Okay, I'll do the remember who you're fighting for one. Incredible, incredible stuff. By the way, I'm live on Twitch and YouTube, okay? I'm live on both Twitch and YouTube here. We're blasting off. I know I can show YouTube chat on Twitch. They updated the rules. I know. Shut up. I know. Here it is. Here's the blast off meme. Yeah, our Kamala Harris and Biden's loser ass up there. All the dumb folks keep saying things that would be different if Kamala won. I mean, what is Hasan's YouTube thumbnail? Oh yeah, this is my YouTube thumbnail. Yes. Anyway, let's continue with this shit. here.
Of those ballistic missiles. But all of this kicked off this morning around 8:15 a.m. local time. Israelis were woken to the sound of sirens, not announcing incoming missiles, but rather alerting Israelis to this new state of emergency that is in place as Israel announced that it had struck targets in Iran. We then quickly learned that it was not just Israel, but that these are joint strikes carried out by the United States and the Israeli militaries in targeting a range of targets inside of Iran. I'm told that there were dozens of targets that were struck by both militaries. We have been watching, of course, for weeks now as the United States has been carrying out this enormous military buildup in the region, but simultaneously a diplomatic track was taking place. But this morning, that diplomatic track was completely cast aside in favor of this military action by the United States and Israel. We heard from President Trump making clear that this is not just about going after Iran's ballistic missile and nuclear programs, but setting the conditions for regime change. And we have heard similar comments as well from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. We know now that Israel is at a very heightened state of awareness. Most Israelis are either in their bomb shelters or very close by, awaiting the ramifications of this, as we are already watching Iran launch missiles not only here, but at other sites across the Middle East. Victor?
Jeremy Diamond for us there in Tel Aviv. We will get back to you in just a few moments. President Trump is monitoring the strikes from his Mar-a-Lago resort, and he calls on Iranians to stand up to their government and warns the fight could put American lives in danger. He also says the U.S. has done everything it can to keep American troops safe in the region.
Come on, bro. Come on. Yeah, we are doing everything we can to keep American troops safe in the region. By what? Fucking blowing up Iran? A country that has a ballistic missiles program specifically for this very moment. We're keeping them safe by like bringing them. We're keeping them safe by basically putting them on these like floating islands that Iran can strike. You know, that's it. They're basically missile sponges, dude. That's it. Just understand that your homies, your neighbors, your loved ones, your cousins, whoever the fuck's out there right now is functionally a missile sponge. They're drone sponges. They're missile sponges. They're just sitting there parked outside, hoping that the anti-missile systems actually stop the Iranian pummeling. It's just so crazy because, like, everyone could have seen this from a million miles away. I mean, I talked about it for a fucking week. Like, it was so obvious that the entire negotiations process was a sham. The entire negotiations process was an utter sham. Everybody knew. Everybody understood that this was going to happen. It was an inevitability. It was going to happen. Because Israel wanted it to happen. And Israel has wanted this to happen for 50 fucking years at this point, okay? Not 50 years, but like definitely 30 years, right? This is like 30 years of American policy, American foreign policy and Israeli foreign policy. It's finally happening at Israel's weakest moment as far as like unlimited support from the West. Do you see what that pig kid starver said?
Earlier this morning.
Oh. They've been saying Iran is 2 seconds away from the nuclear bomb since like 1989. Okay, Benjamin Netanyahu is the guy who's been saying it. That's so crazy. Like, even the actors are the same. Here, let's look at this slave.
The United States and Israel struck targets in Iran. Iran has since launched indiscriminate strikes across the region. I know the British people and communities across our country will be deeply concerned about what this means for security and stability and for the fate of innocent people across the region, which for so many of us includes friends and family members. So whilst the situation is evolving very quickly, I want to set out our response. The United Kingdom played no role in these strikes, but we have long been clear. The regime in Iran is utterly abhorrent. They have murdered thousands of their own people, brutally crushed dissent, and sought to destabilize the region. Even in the United Kingdom.
Like, by the time he released this statement, we knew that America and Israel had blown up a school, okay? Like a little girl's school. Like when he says, oh, we must allow America and Israel to strike Iran and blow up schools because Iran is crushing dissent. Does that argument make sense to you? Does that argument make sense to you at all? By the way, I mean, it's just, again, slave, okay? Slave, cattle, slave. That's it. That's it. War criminal, cattle, slave, all of it. Also deeply unlikable and pathetic monster, but I just, look, I don't know where we go from here, okay? I think it's virtually impossible for people not to look at the situation and wake the fuck up to the reality that this is completely untenable, completely unacceptable. I don't know. I try to, because maybe I'm a little too invested in this stuff. Maybe I'm a little too knowledgeable on this stuff as well. And I know what the real reasons are as to why we're doing it, and the average person doesn't. And the average person's perspective when I have a conversation with them is like, does this mean Iran has a nuke? Is Iran going to nuke us? Is Iran going to bomb us? Like, it's important for you to go out and talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to your family, talk to your loved ones, and explain to them carefully exactly why this is happening. Okay? Exactly why this is happening. It has nothing to do with like security concerns. It has nothing to do with the Iranian population and its liberation. And the American government isn't even doing a decent enough job at presenting it as such, like lying. They're not even lying. They're not even offering us the dignity to lie to our fucking faces, right? They're not even doing that. They're just straight up saying, we're going to war. Maybe we're going to liberate the Iranian people. Who gives a shit? Whatever, you know? Who cares? Shut the fuck up. It's for oil. It's for the military industrial complex. It's so that America and America broadly can control this entire region and have no sovereignty whatsoever in this region, because sovereignty in this region actually stops Israel from developing the greater Israeli project, taking over territory in Lebanon, taking over sovereign soil in Syria, taking over maybe even pieces of Egypt and Saudi Arabia, right? That is the ambition for Israel separately. And the ambition for America is to let Israel do whatever the fuck it wants in the region, because they think this still aligns with their interests. And whoever dies in the process dies. It doesn't matter. Americans who die in the process, sorry, you died for the almighty dollar. You died for the petrodollar. You died for dollar hegemony. There's nothing you can do about it. Maybe we'll offer you a little medal at the end of that journey, you know, so your family can fucking cry and look at the medal and think, oh, you died you died a dignified death. Okay? When you go out there, many people in this community and elsewhere in the United States of America have joined the armed forces because they just simply want upward social mobility. They don't get it any other way. They have to sell their soul to the fucking Pentagon. They have to sell their soul to the United States Department of Defense because they think, oh, I'll just go there. I'll do one tour. It'll be fine. I'll come out of that. I'll get a fucking comms degree from my local university, my state university, and then I'll enter the same fucking dog shit job market that everyone else is suffering in with the hopes that I can have a job, with the hopes that I can maybe have a roof over my head and some upward social mobility. The best case scenario in this situation is you go out there, you get like maybe a little bit of PTSD, you come back, and you actually have a job until AI takes it away from you. Now you have to live with a lifetime of crippling mental illness, crippling PTSD. But just know, when you're going out there and you're putting your body on the line, you're doing it for the pedophilic cabal of elite billionaires that control every facet of society, so they can make super profits over and over again. So they can extract the materials, they can extract the rare earth minerals, they can extract the natural resources, oil, right? If you want to simplify it, and they can make the money. Yeah. In worst case scenario, they'll tell you your injuries are not service related. There's that too. And some believe the liberty and justice narratives. Some do. I'm sure if you're a veteran, you've met them, you've encountered them. Maybe you believe them at some point. Maybe you were like, no, we're fighting for free speech, brother. How many doors do you have to knock down in Kabul before you realize, like, maybe there wasn't really a free speech component here? You know what I mean? Sitting inside of a fucking forward operating base in Korengal Valley as you hear pot shots from afar, IEDs exploding, friends of yours getting their dicks blown off because the American military didn't put sufficient armor underneath the fucking Humvees. They didn't think that roadside bombs would actually be a significant threat. You see your buddies get their legs blown off inside of a Humvee. Someone made money there. Not you. Someone else made money, right? A contractor made money. Now your dick's blown off. Now your leg's blown off. You come back, you're like, what am I supposed to do? My life is fucked. Why did you do it? Did you do it to defend freedom? Is that what it was? Whose freedom were you defending? I'm from PR. I served in the Middle East when Israel started war with Gaza. I've lost buddies, lost to the suicide too. I'm fucked up in the head. This shit's making it worse. I served because I was broke, Puerto Rico situation. Knowing I fucked up my body and mental for Israel is driving me insane. Okay, there is a fucking productive thing that you can do, for the record, which is organize. Get other like-minded individuals that have been in the same fucking conditions and ensure that no one else gets duped and suckered into the same predicament ever again. Okay? That's what you're supposed to do. Your lived experience should help you help others. Okay? You can't give up. And I promise you, when you actually engage others with similar issues like that and you try to correct it, you try to offer atonement for the shit that you did that's like fucking up your brain now, you're gonna feel better as well. It is gonna be more productive for you. And slowly but surely, you work to the best of your ability to make things right, to ensure that there aren't new, younger generations that fall into the same fucking trap. You're an outlier, but let's not LARP. Like, this community actually cares about the stories of veterans and our experiences, bro. Lost 60% of the chat wants and wanted us dead from the top. Okay, calm down. I also go back and forth on this because it's just like I don't want to hear the fucking sob story every goddamn day either, okay? And that's not true. Half of the community are already like either fucking veterans themselves. It's like, yes, half of the community is like, oh yeah, every veteran, every imperialist soldier deserves death. And then the other half is like, I was an imperial soldier. And I kind of agree with what the people are saying, but I also do feel kind of fucked up about what I had to do. So calm down, okay? I don't care about what you've done. I care about what you're doing now. Do you understand? I don't care about what you've done. I care about who you are as a person now. Your lived experience and the things that you've done should motivate you to do better. And as long as you're doing that, as long as you're trying to stop others from falling into the same trap that you fell into, as long as you use that lived experience to ensure that others don't, as long as you use the training in the future potentially, it's fine. Do you know why North Korea is trending? Yeah, because they have fucking nukes, and therefore they don't have to deal with this shit. Okay? That's probably why they're trending. Like, motherfuckers will say, do nothing, win, but the reality is you have to do something. And that something is develop nukes. That's it. Nuclear sovereignty is the only way that you can exist as a nation in the periphery without American and sometimes Israeli intervention. Vague posting imperialists. I think Americans are going to manufacture consent for the Iranian intervention. I think that they're wrong. If they think they'll be able to get away with manufacturing consent for this, I suspect they're wrong. One, I think the propaganda apparatus has been crippled. I think the propaganda apparatus doesn't have the same motion it once did. Okay? I also don't think that the American government is even invested in doing any sort of propaganda to justify or to manufacture consent. You don't even need it. You don't even fucking need it. What did Zoran say? Oh, God. Today's military strikes on Iran carried out by the United States and Israel mark a catastrophic escalation in illegal war of aggression, bombing cities, killing civilians, opening a new theater of war. Americans do not want this. They do not want another war in pursuit of regime change. They want relief from the affordability crisis. They want peace. I'm focused on making sure every New Yorker is safe. I've been in contact with our police commissioner, emergency management officials. We are taking proactive steps, including increasing coordination across agencies and enhancing patrols of sensitive locations out of an abundance of caution. Additionally, I want to speak to Iranian New Yorkers. You are part of the fabric of the city. You are our neighbors, small business owners, students, artists, workers, and community leaders. You will be safe here. Okay, that's actually pretty good. Like, thank God. I thought he was gonna. Thank God. Thank fucking God. Okay, Jesus Christ. Imagine he was like, hey, now is not the time. Guys, I want to keep Israel in my heart. As Israel and America is blowing up little school children in Iran, I just want to say, please don't say anything that it might offend the sensibilities of those who are actually championing this death and destruction campaign at the best of Israel and the Epstein pedophilic cabal. That would be very unkind of you. And perhaps the only thing that we should care about, okay? AOC statements, the American people are once again dragged into a war they did not want by a president who does not care about the long-term consequences of his actions. This war is unlawful, it is unnecessary, and it will be catastrophic. Just this week, Iran and the United States were negotiating key measures that could have staved off war. The president walked away from these discussions and chose war instead. President Trump flippantly acknowledged the possibility of American casualties, stating, that often happens in war. Mr. President, this was not an inevitability. This is a deliberate choice of aggression when diplomacy and security were within reach. Stop lying to the American people. Oh, yeah, I'm going to talk about Israel doing Israel shit again. They struck an opposition figure that was under house arrest. Luckily, he's still alive, but that's crazy. Anyway. Violence begets violence. We learned this lesson in Iraq. We learned this lesson in Afghanistan. We're about to learn it again in Iran. Bombs have yet to create enduring democracies in the region, and this will be no different. In moments of war, our Constitution is unambiguous. Congress authorizes war. The president does not. I will do my part to uphold our Constitution by voting yes on the Representatives Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie War Powers Resolution. Every member of Congress must join us in rejecting this aimless war. I will say,
like all of you, I woke up this morning to the terrible news that Donald Trump had taken up.
Yeah, I was talking to Abdul last night.
Yet again to war with Iran. Ask yourself who this benefits. It doesn't benefit you or I. It doesn't make our grocery prices any cheaper. It doesn't address the fact that our healthcare is more expensive. It doesn't make home ownership more attainable. All it does is change the subject, distract us from the broken presidency of Donald Trump. This is a man who ran on America first, ran promising that the era of regime change wars was over. And now he's just taken us into another foreign entanglement, the third one this year alone. This is Trump admitting that he cannot solve your problems. He will not even try. Instead, when those problems get bad enough, he's going to distract you.
How do I get my boyfriend to snap out of the Western war can be good mindset? I know he's smart enough to understand this, but he just won't. Is he cattle? Does he sometimes go, Like when you bring him treats, do you sometimes smack him in the ass and he just gets really excited and runs away, runs off into the distance, galloping around? Does he go, mmm? Because you might not have a boyfriend. You just have livestock at that point. I'm just saying. Okay. How do I get my boyfriend to snap out of the Western war can be good mindset? Okay. Are you dating a Lockheed Martin executive? Are you dating Mr. John Boeing? Ask him these questions. Ask your boyfriend, are you Mike Huckabee? Because if you're not any of those things, it's not beneficial for you, right? It's not beneficial for you at all, especially if you grew up in a rural area. He might literally be a cattle. He might literally be livestock. But if you grew up in a rural area, ask him, hey, don't you think it's fucked up that you don't have a rural hospital? Like the last time you guys had like a healthcare professional in this region was 35 years ago. And businesses have completely pulled out of this area. Everyone is poor as fuck. But it seems like there's always money in the bank to go to war overseas. Does that do anything for you? Does that do anything positive for you? Does that make you feel good? Why does that make you feel good? If it does. You know? These are the questions you can ask your loved ones. These are the questions you can ask your loved ones. Ask them. How does this work for your best interest? Because there's obviously a non-selfish argument to make, one that revolves around solidarity across the board, one that one that recognizes the dignity and humanity of those who are being slain by the Amer-Israeli Empire. But if people can't comprehend that, there's not really any good arguments to constantly engage in this endless warfare anyway. There's not really a lot of great arguments at all, as a matter of fact. I mean, fucking even the veterans that go out there recognize it.
He's going to distract you by weaponizing ICE on your street, killing American citizens, telling us that he's doing something about immigration while he's really just weaponizing and normalizing paramilitary force.
I'm going to have Jeremy Scale on to talk right now.
He's going to take us to war with a nation of 93 million people that's got serious ammunition and artillery behind it. We don't know where this ends. But what this is normalizing a chaos because he can't actually deal with the problems in your life. This is an illegal war. There is no justification for it. He didn't even try to justify it to Congress. He had every opportunity in his State of the Union. He didn't. He's not trying to justify it to the international community because, again, there is no justification. Who benefits from this? How many American women and men are going to get broken over wars we never should have fought? How much of our time and our treasure is going to be spent shedding blood rather than saving lives here at home? This is unacceptable. No war with Iran, and we are going to stand up every single day to oppose this.
All right. Jeremy Scale's in the building. Jeremy Scale of Drop Site is in the building. Esteemed guest. Welcome back, Jeremy. Unfortunately, every single time we have you on, it always feels like the world is collapsing right in front of our eyes. But it's still an honor to have you on nonetheless. Can you hear me?
Thank you for having me back.
Of course. So you guys, you just got done with your reporting. I believe you're in contact with some officials on the Iranian side, and Dropsite just revealed a couple hours ago, or your latest reporting shows, a very different perspective than what we're seeing in mainstream media. But I know you're paying close attention to what's going on in the news. Let's get started with I guess now almost 50-year project of Israel finally coming to a close. Do you feel like there is any? Do you feel like there's any argument that you've heard so far that made you go, maybe this is a real reason for why we're going to war with Iran?
No, and I think it has to be stated at the beginning, just from an American perspective, that the Democrats, we've seen this coming for weeks and weeks, that Trump was going to move forward on this. And at DropSite, we've been reporting on things that we've heard even from people within the inner circle. And one of the things we reported recently is that Trump has been kind of stomping around, even in internal briefings, making statements like, I'm going to go down as the president that forever changed the Iranian regime, and obsessively talking about the '79 revolution and the seizure of the embassy. And they've been, this whole thing started on its surface in mid-January, after the protests in Iran that then converted into very bloody battles and attacks in the streets of Tehran and other cities around Iran. And there's competing narratives about what happened there. But Trump seized on that moment in Iran and said, help is on the way. And of course, the utterly discredited son of the deposed Shah also was calling on Iranians to rise up and seize institutions. And then nothing happened in the immediate aftermath of that. And then Trump basically almost entirely stopped talking about Iran is brutal toward its own citizens and they're massacring their own citizens. He was obsessively claiming that he had stopped all of these public hangings. But they basically dispensed with that, and then they resumed this talk about nuclear weapons. And every U.S. national intelligence estimate going back years had concluded that toward the end of 2003, Iran had given up its nuclear weapons ambitions. And then in June, Trump conducted all of these strikes over 12 days on the three main nuclear sites in Iran. And then they said that they had completely and totally obliterated Iran's nuclear program. In fact, they created a special web page on the White House website to preemptively declare as fake news anyone that would dare to say, otherwise. And then last weekend, we had Steve Witkoff, Trump's special envoy. He and Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, are the point guys on all of this. Witkoff makes like a Dick Cheney style statement and says, Iran is a week away from having industrial grade bomb making material. And they provided no evidence for that whatsoever. But it also sort of was like, well, wait a minute, you either totally obliterated the program or it's gotten so advanced that they're a week away from it. So they start obsessing about this nuclear thing. They're supposedly in negotiations again. Just what happened last year in June happened now, which is that they claim they were going to have another round of technical talks in Vienna, Austria on Monday. The Omani foreign minister last night was with Vice President J.D. Vance and said that the prospects for a deal are very serious. And then, people wake up this morning to news that the United States and Israel have launched massive bombing at sites and cities across Iran. The death toll in this strike that hit the girls' school in Iran has now officially surpassed 85. I'm hearing from sources in Iran that there's been a strike on some kind of a gym facility in another area of Iran where children have also been killed. The Iranians, unlike last time that Israel and the U.S. bombed, didn't wait to sort of absorb it and then come up with their own calibrated response. As we've talked about before, the Iranians have choreographed their retaliatory strikes through back channels with the U.S. in previous times.
Yeah.
We've been reporting for weeks they're not going to do that again.
Yeah.
In fact, we've had sources close to the power structure in Iran that have said that they understand that they're aiming to kill at least 500 American personnel in retaliatory strikes. So delegation to launch strikes was dropped down to a much lower command level in Iran. And that's why you saw an unprecedented simultaneous retaliatory response from Iran across all of these Gulf Arab countries. They also hit Jordan. A colleague of mine in Israel, who's in a bomb shelter right now, just sent me a message saying that the pattern of these strikes is unlike anything we've seen in previous attacks, and that the public instructions are to stay inside of those shelters much longer and a much longer duration than ever before, during these retaliatory strikes from Iran.
Yeah.
Iranian naval vessels from the IRGC have been turning ships away at the Strait of Hormuz. It's unclear if it's officially closed right now, but it appears that could well happen. But to put a fine point on it, let's remember that the Democrats have seen this coming, and Hakeem Jeffries and Democratic leaders in the Senate as well refused to bring to a vote this war powers resolution. Now, I don't have any illusions about the position of the Democrats. In fact, we reported at DropSite that Chuck Schumer and others are cynically hoping that Trump does exactly what he's doing right now for two reasons. One, they actually support it. That's the most important thing to understand. It's a bipartisan consensus.
Absolutely.
They support it. They may not want to say it out loud. But then the other component is that they cynically believe that if it goes foul and wrong, remember, 70% of Americans don't want this war, that it's going to be on Trump and it's going to help their electoral chances. That's what you can distill this down into. They quietly want Orange Hitler to wage a war that they also want, and then they hope it kind of goes bad when he does it, even though they really want it to succeed, but they kind of hope it goes bad in the eyes of the American
win-win,
people so that it helps them. It's a win-win, and it captures in a nutshell the state of the institutional Democratic Party's posture when it comes to foreign policy.
Yeah, absolutely. I have the Ryan Grimm tweet here. It says, Jeffries, who held off a war powers resolution long enough for Trump to go start the war before it came to a vote, does not condemn Trump's attack in his initial response. The party leadership, as we reported last week, is eager to see Trump launch this war. I'm sure you've seen the House Minority Leader's statement on this supposedly unprecedented surprise attack that America and Israel conducted on Iran, that they were signaling that they were going to do as they launched an armada. 50%, more than 50% of our entire naval assets were moved into the region over the last month or so. And Donald Trump kept saying, just like he did in the build up to the 12-day war, that there was going to be a negotiations process. But it was very clear. It was so clear that I actually interviewed Ben Rhodes, former Obama administration National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes, about how these negotiations were simply a sham. Israel had kept adding on additional qualifiers to the negotiations, many red lines that they were simply designing so that the Iranians would inevitably say no. What happened yesterday, however, was really interesting. The Omani official that went on television, I think, knew that this was probably going to happen. And that's precisely the reason why they were saying, no, Iran is actually totally on board with the negotiations and even leaning into maximalist demands that the American government was making on denuclearization, demands that were even more aggressive than the JCPOA, as far as taking out enriched uranium from the country and whatnot. And I think they did that. This is speculation, of course, but I think they did that just to show the American population that the Iranian side was absolutely playing ball, no matter how ridiculous these negotiations were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, also just to back up a bit, a couple of weeks ago, we started reporting based on sources that are informal advisors to the Trump administration and are very well connected with Arab governments, that the U.S. was almost certainly going to move forward with an attack, and that they needed to. The concern was not so much the offensive weaponry that the U.S. needed to get in place. They wanted a delay to bring in refueling aircraft, to bring in missile systems, THAAD, and others that would be capable of defending Israel or the American military bases in the region. And I think there's a real question of whether there was ever even a scintilla of intent to negotiate in good faith. It could be that the entire thing, even if Iran had capitulated in a shocking way, that they still would have gone forward short of the Iranians declaring that they're no longer going to be in Iran anymore, and that Trump is welcome to take over, or Pahlavi can come and walk right in and we'll hand him the keys to the shop. But you had all of this stuff going on, and the Iranians, we started talking to senior Iranian officials, and what they said is, we're putting on the table things that go far beyond the scope of the JCPOA 2015 agreement. In fact, one official said to me, it would shock John Kerry. And John Kerry, of course, was the Secretary of State and was the lead negotiator of the 2015 deal. And so the enrichment levels, the oversight mechanisms they were willing to talk about, the idea that they would then have non-nuclear negotiations down the line, that they were going to buy American civilian aircraft, that they were going to open Iran's doors again to investment opportunities for American oil and gas companies and potentially other American corporations. Yeah. They put all of this on the table, and I think that from their perspective, they weren't Pollyannish about what they were facing. They know that Trump is kind of a crooked godfather as head of state, running around this consigliere, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, the real estate moguls running around doing all of the bidding for Trump. But they felt like, we're going to show the world that we are exercising maximum flexibility on this question. And for some moments, it did seem, and by the way, I was told that there were actual direct talks between the US and the Iranians, not just in this last round, but going back to February 6th in Oman. And the Iranians were saying that they had a sense that the Americans were even taken aback by some of what they were willing to put on the table. So, I talked to Rob Malley, who was on that negotiating team in 2015, an American official, former envoy to Iran under President Biden. And he said Trump could just call it a day and declare victory on this. He's just like knocking it out of the park compared to Obama in terms of what he's able to get out of the Iranians right now. If the issue is nuclear, they've got a victory here. But the thing is, the issue wasn't nuclear. The issue hasn't ever been nuclear. The issue is regime change. The issue is fighting Israel's wars for it. And this all comes days after Mike Huckabee. I know you talked about this on the stream, but days after Mike Huckabee says to Tucker Carlson that, it's a perfectly acceptable goal for Israel to try to move not just from the sea, to the river, but from the sea to the Tigris and Euphrates.
Yeah. Yeah,
What we're seeing here is a combination of factors. This is war for Israel. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. You're also a little bit delayed on your end. Your internet is cutting in and out a little bit. So I apologize for cutting you off. What I was gonna say is like there's competing interests here. There's converging interests and then there's diverging interests. On the American side, and I want to hear your perspective on my assessment. On the American side, obviously, we have a grand design for this resource-rich region. We want to dominate it. We want to have complete control over OPEC Plus to the best of our ability, or at least we want to have like the majority control, right? We have pliant, servile Gulf states, and also completely dominated, former states that are now failed states that are puppet states to the United States of America. As far as like oil producers, and we want to be able to control. We want to have controlling interest in OPEC Plus, so that we can use that as a leverage point against our foreign adversaries, specifically China, right? And that's America's interest in the region, and Israel has different converging interests with the United States of America, and Israel plays a formative role in this project as a unsinkable aircraft carrier, as a missile sponge at times if need be. As a place where we can develop our weapons, as a testing ground for some of the latest and greatest technology in terms of conducting warfare and surveillance and population control. But then on top of that, I think Israel's specific interest, beyond being a servant to American empire as a settler colonial apparatus, is this insane zealotry that they have in terms of following this ultra-Zionist agenda, this idea that they want to complete a greater Israel project, destroy all of the indigenous populations, and either turn them into slaves or basically ethnically cleanse them and dominate this entire area from Lebanon to Syria, as they've started taking on even more territory and annexing even more territory in these places, and maybe even parts of Saudi Arabia and Egypt. And who knows where they go from there, right? And definitely even start waging war with Turkey as well once Iran is knocked out of the equation, as even Naftali Bennett has clearly signaled, right? That's the convergence, but the divergence, I think, is when Israel's ambitions get in the way of a more reasonable path forward. And I think we saw that as a divergence in the Obama administration. The last time we had any sort of sovereignty in our own design in the Middle East was the JCPOA. Now, obviously, I have my own personal opinions on, developing nuclear sovereignty for nations in the periphery. I believe everyone has to have a nuclear program if they want to exist outside of the American nuclear umbrella as a sovereign state. Having said that, the JCPOA was something that the Obama administration put together to actually negotiate a peaceful path forward with Iran, to potentially normalize relations with Iran, to have a lot of controls over their nuclear program and their enrichment capabilities, And Israel hated that. And then Donald Trump came into office and ripped the JCPOA apart. And Iran still continued following along with the JCPOA for a little bit, but then Donald Trump added additional sanctions. This was Trump 1. And then Joe Biden came into power, and Joe Biden was also an ultra-Zionist, and Joe Biden also followed with the same exact agenda. I feel like post-Trump 1, Israel got into the driver's seat and was no longer simply a consultant or no longer simply, the tip of the spear in some ways on America's MENA policy, but basically took it over entirely. Do you agree with this assessment? I know it's very long. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, a couple strings to pull on from what you just said. I think there is a sort of massive shift in aspects of Trump 1 to Trump 2. Remember that Trump openly viewed John Bolton, one of the most obnoxious neocons on the scene. He openly was talking about what a fanatical lunatic John Bolton was. And one of Bolton's kind of crowning achievements in the first Trump administration, when he was the national security advisor, was the assassination of General Qasem Soleimani at Baghdad airport in January of 2020, the head of the elite IRGC force of Iran. And when you read some of the reporting about it, and even sort of how Trump spoke about it at the time, it took a while for Trump to come around to that, and then ultimately he did it, and then he felt good about it, and it kind of showed him his awesome power. And it's like Trump liked those kind of clean things. Oh, I killed Baghdadi, I killed Qasem Soleimani. But in general, while Trump was a militaristic president, no doubt about it, in his first term, there was you got a sense that he was listening or sort of leaning more toward the direction of kind of the anti-interventionist, isolationist wing of the MAGA movement. And he kept the Israel firster Netanyahu neocon wing kind of a little bit at bay. He comes in this time, and again, the context is Joe Biden, 50-year dedicated Zionist, who facilitated the Gaza genocide with total enthusiasm, throughout his 4 years in power, and then Kamala Harris, who comes out and when she becomes the nominee and says, "There's nothing I would do differently than him," and that's a huge part of why they lost, of course, but they don't want to release their autopsy, sets the stage then for Trump 2. And I think one of the most telling moments, and it speaks to the questions you're raising, in this entire period of Trump's second presidency, is when he goes to the Israeli Knesset back in October, when he's on his way to declare he's secured the Gaza ceasefire at Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. And he arrives in the Knesset, and it was sort of like a reverse Nuremberg trial, where the war criminals themselves are celebrating themselves and standing up and cheering one another. And he goes on and on about the kind of influence of Miriam Adelson, the late Sheldon Adelson's wife, and the single greatest bankroller of Trump's campaign. And he talks about her being the most influential, Israeli in the world. And I think that part of what's happened here is that led up to this is twofold. Trump now is completely in the service of the most extreme Zionist agenda in history. He's in total servitude to that agenda for a variety of reasons. He's not as sophisticated of a Zionist as Joe Biden was when his brain was intact, but Trump is all in, and he's willing to do anything for them at this point. And then the other component of it is that these guys are all high on their own supply. You've got drinking buddy Pete Hegseth as the so-called Secretary of War. You've got little Marco, who thinks he's Dulles risen from the dead, trying to overthrow Cuba and the Venezuela thing. They kidnap Maduro, and Trump starts to sort of want it injected into his veins. And I was told that Trump and his people were saying, can we do another Venezuela in Iran? And he's hearing from intelligence and military people, it doesn't work that way in Iran. And he doesn't like some of what he's hearing from the military people. And he starts to understand that, Iran didn't go all in the last times that they've struck against us, that their ballistic missiles are actually pretty ferocious in some ways, that there are weak links in the Iron Dome system in Israel, that it can be overwhelmed, that U.S. bases can be hit, that you may, Mr. President, face a mass casualty incident involving American personnel. So then they're talking about, what about a Libya option where we use air power? But the problem is, what ground forces do you have inside of Iran? And the other thing is Iran, for as much as people talk about the supreme leader, Iran has been building horizontal institutions since 1979. This isn't a commentary about any internal political issue. These are for Iranians to debate. I'm looking at this from a perspective of military intelligence, strategic, what is possible and what isn't. Iran is not Libya. Iran is also not Venezuela in the sense that you're just going to lop off the supreme leader and then say we're making a deal with the rest of you. So they now are in this war that is not in any way in the interest of the American people whatsoever. It's not in the interest of anyone in that region except Israel. And so what do we have at the end of the day? The only conclusion we can draw is that Trump is fully purchased and bought into at the same time Israel's war of annihilations in the region. I was in touch with a senior Iranian official this morning and asked him about the response from all of these Arab countries where they're condemning quote unquote Iranian aggression, but then they're silent about the fact that it's the United States and Israel that launched this war. And he made a point, he condemned it. He said, of course, this is this is unfortunately what we've come to expect, et cetera. But he said, did they not understand? Eventually their number is going to come up. Like they may feel like they're in a good position right now. They had their nice little visit with Trump, but their cards are going to get pulled one day or another in this whole project. Right now they're useful pawns in this game.
Yeah. There's also this national security report from Reuters, which, maybe not always the most trustworthy, but at least on the American side, it's important that they're leaking this kind of thing. But Aaron Banco reports as a Reuters exclusive, the CIA assessed before the strikes that even if Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed in the operation, he would likely be replaced by hardline figures from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. And I've said this over and over again, that the Ayatollah himself is 87 years old. He is a zealot, but and therefore I think like martyrdom would probably be something that he looks forward to. But outside of that, there's also obviously like you said, a horizontal leadership structure. And within the Iranian forces, within the Politburo, within the political side of Iranian civil society, and within the IRGC, the Ayatollah is probably one of the more restrained elements, whether it be offering personal setbacks to the Iran nuclear program, or even the restrained nature in which Iran has refused to retaliate beyond some kind of retaliatory theater, as we talked about with Qatar. So if you take out Ayatollah, or even some of the top-line generals in the IRGC, which have become even hardliners from the last cleansing that took place in the 12-day war, you're going to have a group of individuals that are even less responsive to American negotiations. That's my speculation, and it turns out the CIA is saying similar things as well.
But yeah, and I think that there's a couple things I want to comment on that, but just to start with what you just said, I think that even is confirmable from the Iranian perspective, because what we've been told by sources is that they have a multi-layered succession system that they put into place at the time of the 12-day war. And it is true that a significant number of senior military figures who fell into, a more moderate camp when it came to how should we be responding to attacks militarily by the United States and Israel, they're gone, and there were directives issued, as I said at the beginning, further down the command chain, and that's why you saw this almost immediate retaliatory response by Iran across the spectrum, and actually increasingly seems like they're going to start hitting targets in these countries in a real way. There's been a hotel here, a military facility here. The airport in Kuwait was also apparently bombed as well. But I think we're gonna see a lot more on that front. But on this issue of is someone from the IRGC going to take power? That's not exactly what we've been hearing from Iranian sources. That's not what has been reported from the Iranian side. It's newsworthy that is the assessment that the CIA is making. But again, I think it goes back to Iran being a nation of institutions. Yes, it has a supreme leader, and that seems like a very foreign concept certainly to Westerners. But that doesn't mean that it's not a country of institutions. Another thing about Ali Khamenei specifically, remember that, yes, he is a religious and a highly revered religious figure in the world of Shia Islam. There's no question about that. But he also, on a tactical level, was deeply involved with the Iran-Iraq war.
Yeah.
And he is not just a guy sitting in a room, praying for the world. This is someone who
Absolutely.
also has been a combatant in this war since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, understands the stakes very well, and understands military strategy. This is not just like your neighborhood priest who's giving, this is someone who really, really understands on a tactical and political level the enemy that his country is facing. That is just a factual thing. This is a highly advanced scientific society.
Yeah.
That is a society of institutions. I keep emphasizing that because it is not some, sort of banana republic somewhere where you just pluck out the dictator and everything comes crumbling down. The other part of it is, who are the ground forces that are going to come in to implement this thing? Pahlavi, he's going to raise an army. The MEK, this fanatical cult that has this oversized influence among politicians in the United States. You're going to have Kurdish forces, come in. It's some military planners have said it's like they're not actually thinking it through on a political level. The U.S. military advisors, they're telling Trump all of this stuff.
Yeah.
They're painting pictures for him. And the Trump people kept coming back and looking for something clean. So what do we get in Trump's speech? We get Trump going out there, and it was like this weird hodgepodge potpourri of things I'm going to throw at you. Wow, the 79 revolution. Oh, they took our embassies hostage. Then he throws in, they were involved with the USS Cole bombing in Yemen in 2000, which was done by Al-Qaeda, sort of sworn enemies of Iran. He's just throwing everything at the wall. And then he's saying, after we are finished raining bombs down on you, everyone should stay inside for now because bombs are going to rain down. But then you're going to seize the reins of power, which you've always wanted, and we're going to hand it over to you. It's as though it presumes that there is some strange, tiny cult that somehow is in charge of a nation of 90 million people, and that it's just a matter of killing the leaders of that.
Yeah.
And then everybody comes out and says, oh my God, we want the Shah back in power. And, this is like fanciful thinking that from an American perspective too, if you want to be like just looking at what are America's interests, could well result in a large number of American deaths. Not to mention, they're blowing up girls' schools within hours of this thing starting. They blow up, and I'm sure the death toll is going to rise. They hit a girls' school. They're hitting sports facilities. That bombing, by the way, of that girls' school is as horrifying as some of the worst single bombing episodes that we've seen in Gaza. And they did it within like hours of launching this thing on day one. We always talk about what are American interests, but I think it needs to be said, Hasan, that what about the Iranians who are dying on the other side of these missiles? And again, the whole thing is a cooked up narrative. Yeah. There is no imminent threat. There is nothing to preempt. The only thing that was preempted was a diplomatic solution where the other side was making concessions that were on an unprecedented scale. The Iranian people are being punished for Trump's nonsensical war that was facilitated by the Democrats doing nothing yet again, not raising any voices, quietly cheering this on, cynically hoping that it benefits them electorally. That's the bankrupt nature of our politics that leads to a war that is setting literally the Middle East on fire right now.
Yeah, no, they have no succession plan, and that much is very clear from some of the targets that they've actually prioritized as well in the first round of the bombing, where apparently they tried to strike the president's residence as well, and the president is like elected civil society leadership that is a reformist, right? Like this is, I know that I'm sure
that the foreign minister by that matter. So is the foreign minister.
Exactly.
Arachi
the foreign minister and the president are they're not like they're nowhere near even from the eyes of the Iranian population. They're not seen as like, I'm sure that they're very upset because they feel as though the Ayatollah hand selects everyone regardless. But like these are some of the more reformist and some of the more moderate forces in Iranian society. They've actually, from what I understand, targeted the in the Pasteur district, the residential building in which Akhtar Ali, the leader of Iran's Green Movement, was housed under house arrest since 2011. So they're actually going after oppositional figures as well. And it leads me to believe that their goal here is to create a Libya-style scenario without any sort of ground elements they have, or maybe lean heavily into whatever kind of Mossad ground elements they do have inside of the country, and hope that, like, you know, Kurdish forces can cause enough chaos and destabilization elsewhere, and then internally in Tehran and in the heart of the government, the heart of the Iranian government, they can create enough mass instability with the hopes that they just have a failed state. That is, it seems like that's their most likely scenario out of this. They have no succession plan.
Well,
It wouldn't be appropriate even if they had a succession plan, by the way. I'm not saying that at all, but it's just very obvious that they have no goals here other than the fact that Israel is terrified of the Iranian ballistic missiles program because it showed its capabilities of being able to cut through the THAAD interceptors and the Arrow systems and the Tamir interceptors as well, and actually strike at the heart of Israel in Tel Aviv and strike at military targets in and around Israel. And they want to be able to defang the administration with the hopes that they can just, like, without depleting their munitions like they almost did last time, they want to be able to cause enough instability and enough chaos that there's never a threat from the Iranian ballistic missile systems ever again.
Yeah, and I think remember what Israel did when Assad fell in Syria. You know, at which Trump recently took credit and said that he basically put Ahmed al-Sharaa, in power. That's for a different show, though. But the Israelis turned around and they bombed the entire conventional military capacity of Syria, including all of its defensive weaponry that basic nation states have. And the reason that Israel did that was to ensure that no Arab government was going to be able to take power or establish power in Syria that would be capable of defending itself against Israel. And Israel, of course, is moving toward annexing even further territory inside of Syria. And I think there's a degree to which, I don't know to what extent Trump is willing to go the distance for what he believes is going to be a regime change war. Remember, it was the U.S. and Israelis that sort of wanted the 12-day war to end, that reached out and said, okay, enough is enough. And the Iranians view this as it's the launch of a potentially existential war. And so I think we're going to see them pull no punches in their reply. But how long does Trump want to take this on? What happens if the Iranians manage to strike a U.S. base and they kill a large number of U.S. personnel? What's going to happen in that scenario? So we have those questions, but let's play this out a bit and say, okay, they're going to continue bombing and they're hitting ballistic missile sites throughout the country. They're rebombing some of the facilities that they did last time, which, again, there's no imminent threat of Iran making a nuclear bomb. Like we should just be very clear about that. But let's say that the point is to use that as a justification for doing the rest of this. And they don't really even pretend to have an ultimate justification. It's kind of like a junior varsity version of the Cheney propaganda that took place prior to 2003. They're taking some shades of Cheney, but it's not even like in the same universe of sophistication as that campaign. And it's much more haphazardly thrown together. And sidebar, Hasan, the New York Times, for all of their kind of pearl clutching about Donald Trump and his dangers, what are they doing right now? They're conveyor belts again for the same lies.
Yeah.
They're doing stories saying like, oh, Al-Qaeda and Iran are in cahoots again, and they're going to activate their networks in Europe. They're doing the same thing again. They're doing the exact same thing, even though like they view him as like Orange Hitler, who's going to put David Sanger in a concentration camp. And it's like, so now we're in this situation where I think part of it is that they're just going to go after Iran's missile capacity, because Israel recognizes this may take a long time, or Israel may want to continue to be attacking Iran. But the real question is here, at what point is the U.S. going to say, okay, it's enough? It's a real question. It's a real question how long this is sustainable, especially if targets start getting hit, which I think they probably will, in the region, meaning Iran is going to start hitting and getting quote unquote successful strikes on U.S. military assets.
And they've set it up this time in a much more, in a much less restrained manner as well, going after American bases and radar systems and early advanced warning systems in and around the Gulf where American military bases are. and they targeted them, and they haven't actually they've been pummeling Israel a lot harder this time around as well. They've learned a lot of lessons from the 12-day war, and I think this was generally what the military advisors were leaking to the press in the buildup with this armada coming into the region, where they kept saying, like, we don't know if we have enough munitions, not for offensive capabilities, mind you, but for defensive capabilities. And I think that they also knew that this was going to happen. That's still economic activity for the American military industrial complex, for developers, for contractors and whatnot, to go back to those bases and build again, right? But they knew that those bases would get blown up. They totally let go of those bases, and that's precisely the reason why they brought in a fleet of AWAC, air surveillance systems instead, all to basically defend Israel in the upcoming retaliatory strikes. Now, I don't know how successful this defense will look like. I don't know how successful the THAAD systems will look like, especially considering that the THAAD systems actually failed to intercept quite a bit. We haven't seen the full scope of the Iranian munitions and how much they can, like, how much more success they can have in terms of penetrating the Israeli defenses. But I think this is not going to be as successful an operation for America. And I think if this continues, the longer this goes on, the worse things will get, especially if they end up striking American assets with American active duty service members in it.
Yes, and I think probably Israel has fed the United States an idea, because I think there's still a lot of people enamored of the Israeli intelligence in Iran, and without question, Israel has been able to successfully, clandestinely and covertly, and at times overtly, strike inside of Iran. There's no question about that. But I think that the power of their intelligence services, or the prowess of it, is overrated. And I think that they do a very good job of snowballing the Americans into believing that their intelligence is like platinum level.
Yeah.
And I bet that my guess would be that there is a lot of, or a significant amount of, wishful thinking that's been stovepiped, through the system into concrete intelligence about what might happen if you just manage to kill Khamenei and the commanders of the IRGC. That actually there's great consternation within the conventional military in Iran, that we think we could start to see defections take place. And Pahlavi, nobody really likes him, but he does have X, Y, and Z, and the Israelis are ready to do this, and they can smuggle weapons in this way. I can imagine that they have some little lab that they're cooking this stuff up in, and they're hoping that, like, things come together if they just continue to bomb and bomb and bomb and bomb. I think there's a real chance that that's part of the plan, is wishful thinking. But again, it's how heavily is the United States going to bomb? What are they going to bomb? How are the Iranians going to respond? What is the response going to be in the region? If this goes on and on and on, and Iran really does pull out all stops and puts its military force on display, we're going to know whether it was hot air or whether the Iranians were telling the truth, that they've really calibrated their responses. I don't think we've seen the most ferocious Iranian response. I think this is just starting.
Yeah, no, I agree, and we'll see. Especially in nighttime, it is nighttime now in the region, so we'll see what kind of retaliatory strikes they have. They've definitely upped the intensity of their bombing campaigns in retaliation to Israel's strike. And who knows? I mean, the one thing I will say is that the only thing that both America and Israel respond to and choose to back away from is a military deterrence. That's the reason for why there is an indigenous, ballistic missile defense industry in Iran that has been fairly successful. And it seems that, like, restraint over and over again, and assuming that, like, the Western nations will deal with Iran in as equal partners in any capacity has been an abject failure. And it looks like they're recognizing that now, because once you get backed into a corner over and over again, you're basically teaching your adversaries that the only way to get out of it is to fight out of it, to fight their way out of it.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
and
Yeah, I was gonna.
And again, like you know.
Go ahead. Sorry. It's there's a little bit of drop
Yeah, I apologize
off.
if it's my internet.
Yeah. No, it's all good. Go ahead.
Yeah. Uh, just one final thought on this. You know, I mean, all governments are going to say, you know, oh, you're not, you know, we're ready to take you on. We're going to fight. You're not going to be able to overthrow us. Like, you know, I don't think any of us that have you know followed warfare or American regime change operations, you know, or know anything about this history, are naive to that. But when we talk about the difference between Iran and the other nations that the United States or Israel have attacked in this manner, we're talking about a much more formidable adversary. We're talking about a much larger geographic area. We're talking about a much more modern and sophisticated society with a very sophisticated military and weapons production system. And we're talking about decades of building horizontal institutions. So it's not that the United States doesn't have the bombs to just continue on and on and on. It's not that there isn't sort of a really nefarious will here that's at play, or that Israel is finally getting its way. That's all true. At the end of the day, it's going to boil down to some unpredictable components that neither you nor I really can imagine at this point. And I think that it can come down to also what happens when there is a large scale casualty incident involving Americans. How is Trump going to respond? Is he going to lose his mind and start talking about using a nuclear weapon? You know, how is he going to respond to that? What happens if you do this for a couple of weeks, and yes, you've killed a bunch of people, but there's no sign of an uprising happening? There's no sign of rebellion. And instead, what you're seeing is large demonstrations of Iranians inside uniting against what the US is doing. What happens in that scenario? From the Iranian perspective, what does happen if the use of force by the United States is much more overwhelming than any analysts expected? That they are actually severely degrading the country's ability to launch ballistic missiles? What happens if there is a real wipeout of multiple layers of the succession system in Iran? These are questions that float around in the ether. And at the end of the day, the narrative from the US is that there's this Islamic Republic dictatorship that's holding a nation of 90 million people hostage. That's the dominant narrative. My sense is that Iran is a much more pluralistic society than that you have much sharper and nuanced degrees of how Iranians in general view the Islamic Revolution, the Islamic Republic government, what they want in their society. This isn't a case of two options where you either have, oh, these secular, Western-oriented Iranian diasporas who think that, you know, who want to make sure that no one ever has to wear a hijab, and then on the other side you have the mullahs. It's a ridiculous oversimplification that does a service to no one to think about. So that human dimension is something that almost never gets talked about. Iranians don't fall into two categories. You have people, even within the ruling state in Iran, there is great diversity of how people view what that government should be like, how they view its policies, including some of the favored policies to talk about in the West. There's great diversity of thought. And all I'm cautioning here is that let's say that the US and Israel are able to do unspeakable damage to the state in Iran. That doesn't mean that Iranians are going to, like, en masse say, oh my God, you know, thank you, Donald Trump. Now here we have X kind of government. That oversimplification is a total disservice, including to Americans who are trying to assess what they actually believe about these policies.
Yeah. One last question before I let you go. Thank you so much for coming on, by the way. Jeremy Scale of Dropside, everybody. And my question for you is, what do you have to say to these middle powers who at Davos, led by Mark Carney and many others, had condemnations for the United States of America and the death of the New World Order when Trump came out and basically treated white countries, European allies in the same way that he treats countries like Venezuela and the same way that he's treating a country like Iran. There was a lot of condemnation during the Greenland incident. And yet every single one of these European leaders and the Canadian leader with Mark Carney has come out to condemn not the United States of America and Israel for blowing up schools only a couple hours ago. And according to the Red Crescent, the death numbers are at 200 plus at this point in the first round of bombing, with 700 plus casualties overall. They are condemning Iran for retaliating. What do you have to say about this?
Well, look, I mean, all of these countries have just been like cucked by Trump. I mean, it's really impressive. And you know, I heard even Keir Starmer today say that Iran needs to give up its missiles. What nation state exists without a capacity to defend itself? He didn't even say like nuclear weapons. He said they need to give up their weapons program. And it's like, okay, Iran, the solution to this is you're being attacked by the most powerful nation in the world, plus Israel, and the Prime Minister of Britain gets up and says that the solution is Iran should end its weapons program, as though that means that they don't believe that Iran should be a state. And so you have the Arab countries, with the exception of Oman, have all come out and they're condemning Iranian aggression. They're saying nothing about the US and Israeli aggression. You have the European countries who all are issuing these milquetoast statements about concerns about rising violence, and they're speaking as though there is no aggressor involved here. And then they pivot to the most passionate languages denouncing Iran, as though Iran started this. Iran has capitulated in terms of their terms to a set of demands that if they were on the table in previous deals that the Europeans have called for, the Europeans would feel that they had essentially tricked Iran. So what the logical European position on all of this would have been to say to Trump, do you understand what we have on the table here? We have been working for decades on this. No one has ever been able to achieve this before. Oh my God, thank you, Donald Trump. You got this. Sign this deal with Iran right now. But they're all afraid. They're all little poodles getting walked around the block constantly by Donald Trump, and they say nothing. And then they pathetically denounce the country that just had a girls' school bombed, where more than 85 people just got killed, a country that wasn't launching strikes at the United States. And the Europeans have the audacity to denounce Iranian aggression and call for it to lay down its entire weapons program, to not be a state anymore. I mean, we live in a totally upside down world. And I'll end with this. In my mind too, some of the biggest villains in this story, the Democratic Party. The Democrats from the time that the genocide began in Gaza, and it was their man and their woman in the driver's seat on that thing. It was Biden and Harris, and they could have ended that war. They could have ended that genocide tens of thousands of Palestinians ago. They could have warded off this whole thing. They gave us Donald Trump. They should never be able to shake these two fundamental facts from the past 3 years. They facilitated the genocide. They ensured it would continue. Then they refused to listen to people who were saying, you're going to lose this election to Donald Trump if you don't stop this policy. They refused to listen to people that knew what they were talking about, and they gave us Donald Trump. None of these people have any right to say, oh, the Palestinians in Michigan did this. No, you did this. And now you're doing it again. You're doing it again because you cynically actually like it. You cynically actually like what Donald Trump is doing. And then you pretend, oh, we're against it. Oh my God, Chuck Schumer saying the president needs to make his case. No, you need to make your case as to why you haven't done war powers resolutions, why you're not up in arms about this war of aggression that we're launching.
Why
we've
you held
seen
it
this.
off.
You and I now are old enough. We've seen it.
Yeah.
Over and over.
Why you've held it off until the bombing campaigns began. Like there was an opportunity. There was a shorter period. I saw someone talking about it. There was a shorter period of time in which like they created a resolution to honor Charlie Kirk. I think it was 8 days. It's been 12 days since it's been much longer than that, but certainly 12 days since like the Iranian conversation greatly escalated when the Armada was there. 50-60% of our naval assets are in the region. 12 days. They could have pushed for this war powers resolution ahead of time. They didn't. They waited. on purpose. Now, the thing is, that's not going to stop Trump anyway. But they're not even creating the legal hurdles, like the congressional hurdles that are necessary to basically carry out impeachment later down the line if they end up winning in the midterms and have the capacity to start articles of impeachment once again. That's what's so crazy, is that they're not putting up any fight whatsoever. And it's so obvious that it is because they want this to happen. It is uniparty. Striking Iran has been a uniparty decision for many, many years. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't any Democrats at all that are against this. There certainly are some who have been outspoken on this, but they are far from the majority. And as long as those people also don't call out the party leadership for their lack of interest in moving in any direction to create some sort of like reasonable defense against it, it's all seen as, in my opinion, a total capitulation, total concession to the fascist imperialist endeavors of the Trump administration and Israel.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're gonna move on, but just in closing on that front, I agree with you that there are a handful of political elected officials in the Congress, and they're not all Democrats. I think of Thomas Massey, for example. And Ro Khanna, of course. I mean, I think that they've done a really sort of praisable campaign on the war powers issue. And that's one narrow component of this, because remember that presidents also violate this all the time. Yeah. And Bill Clinton did this during his presidency, waging wars and violating the concept of the War Powers Act. So we shouldn't also view that as like, oh, Congress is going to do this and then Trump's going to listen to them.
Oh yeah.
Presidents, both Democrats and Republicans, Trump is doing it in the extreme right now. They really are enamored of this idea of the unitary executive, that when it comes to quote unquote national security policy, that Congress's only function is to fund the priorities that the president implements. This was the life's work of Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld, and the embodiment of it under Trump is a real story. Because Trump looks like a buffoon in a lot of ways, and he says the most outrageous stuff. But if you look at it really through the lens of like what Cheney and those guys were trying to do, what's clear is that Cheney and company made a mistake by caring too much about the law. This was it. They were a lawless administration. They cared too much. Trump's kind of showing them how it's done. And he's also showing them, in the same way that Israel is showing it can bomb whoever they want and no one's going to do anything about it, Trump is showing them the Democrats aren't going to actually do anything about it. They're not going. They can't do anything about it. So we shouldn't waste too much time on like, oh my God, the War Powers Act. Oh my God, they violated the War Powers Act. It's an important battle, but the bigger battle is, where's the spine from the so-called opposition to stand up to these things, even in their own making the case to the American people? Chuck Schumer says Trump needs to make the case to the American people. Why aren't the Democrats making the case to the American people in a very robust way why this is a horrible idea on multiple levels, including what it's going to do to 90 million people in Iran and what it's going to do to the region, not to mention actual American interests, like not having our people killed? They're not making the case at all. So it's not just about the War Powers Resolution or demanding that Trump make his case to the Congress. It's also, if we had a real opposition, they'd be making the moral, ethical, and strategic case, like their very existence depended on it right now, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And they won't do that ever. So yes, War Powers Act, we should use it, but that's not the end all be all.
Yeah, no, the reason why I brought that up is because the War Powers Act, by my assessment, is kind of like a restraining order, right? A restraining order doesn't create a physical protective barrier around you and your stalker. It just simply creates legal paperwork so that when there is any sort of additional enforcement of a restraining order, in violation of a restraining order, you have more tools in your disposal to prosecute it. And the War Powers Act here is not technically, in a functioning government, it's supposed to be a mechanism of enforcement, but we know it's not. But at least it creates a paper trail, a legal paper trail, so that you can actually enforce articles of impeachment later down the line. It also advances the narrative.
You're 100. I 100% agree with you. I don't mean to imply that it's a nothing thing. I'm just saying that it shouldn't be the only thing we're talking about.
Oh, for sure.
But remember
too,
the era we live in now, it's not just that like you have to tune into C-SPAN to watch the debate. In the media environment we live in now, with clipping, with people pulling things, what would happen if we had an actual war powers resolution debate is that you would have an actual debate about fundamental issues involving the American Constitution, about the war powers of the Congress, about the war making of the president, and then you would have the best among that lot in Congress making some of the cases that you would want to hear or I would want to hear.
Yeah.
And then what that does is you then see recognizable politicians making this case. The clips go around. That's how you then initiate also a public debate on it.
Yeah.
Because we don't just have to have C-SPAN. We'd be all of us would be sitting there clipping like mad. This was said, this was said, this was said, picking it apart, fact checking in real time. That would have, if we had done this 3 weeks ago, when it was so clear this is where we were headed, then it's like the Democrats would have been doing something at least. It's not just about the war powers. They would have facilitated a debate. We would have had an opportunity to talk about it where we would have seen the positions of elected officials. They didn't want to go on record. That's really the dark story here. None of them actually wanted to have to go on record about this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They didn't want it. They didn't want their ambitions to be known. And it's crazy because, once again, theoretical democracy is collapsing, especially in Western liberal democracies. And we see that, especially when you look at the polls and you look at the attitude that the American population broadly has, where only 27% of Americans actually want to strike Iran, and more than 70% of Americans don't. In the Democratic Party, the overwhelming majority, if not damn near the entirety of the party's base of support, actually, one, has dropped its support of Israel, has higher sympathies, much higher sympathies for the Palestinian population as opposed to the Israeli population and the Israeli government. And especially in the case of striking Iran, there is no real constituency. And yet, amongst our elected representatives, if you were to look at their makeup overall, if you look at their attitude overall, it's not a real democracy in any way, shape, or form. They are not abiding by the democratic wishes of their own base, of the majority of Americans, and certainly not even their own base of support within the party as well, where 80% of the Democrats say no war with Iran, and yet 98% or something as high as 98% of Democratic electeds are either quiet about it or very restrained in their approach. It's completely unacceptable.
Yeah. Well, Hasan, thank you very much, man, for having me on. And again, big thanks to your crew of people. Like from the first time I was on your feed, I've said this every time I've been on, but I really mean it. Like you've also got some wackadoodles with you, but like in general, your community is a great group of people, man.
Yeah.
And I always love the dialogue and the feedback that I get from your broader community.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming on. Everybody support Dropsite and Jeremy's reporting. It's an honor to have you on as always. Thank you. All right. Have a good one.
Take care, everybody.
Bye. Okay. I am going to run to the bathroom as I play this video now because I have to pee really bad. But that was Jeremy Scale, everybody.
Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries.
All right, let's bring in CNN's Elena Treen. She's reporting from Palm Beach, Florida. Elena, the president said on Friday that he was not happy with where the talks were with Iran, and now we're seeing the consequences of that.
Absolutely, and I think you're right to point out that the context of all of this is incredibly important. We had been hearing of Victor in recent days, really in the lead up until these strikes this morning, the president saying that he wanted diplomacy. He was hoping a deal could be reached. And from all the conversations I had with people at the White House, that was sincere. But of course, at the same time, you saw the Trump administration and the president directly order the most massive military buildup in the region since essentially the 2003 war with Iraq. And so that leverage was there. And I think a lot of people were waiting to see whether the president would move on that. And of course, he did. I also found it very remarkable just to see the president in that video statement giving it and releasing it on social media, having that be the way that he delivered it. But look, there's a couple things I took away, Victor, from those remarks from the president. One is that he said that this is going to be a massive and ongoing operations, and that comes as sources are telling our colleague Zach Cohen and I that the United States is planning for there to be several attacks or several days of attacks. This is going to be a long operation and could ultimately be, the largest military operation the president has ever overseen, including during his first term. But another moment that I found very striking as well is that he essentially...
I've long said that George W. Bush is the worst contemporary administration that America has ever seen, bar none, because of the global war on terror. After today's events, depending on where this goes, I think Donald Trump is objectively now the official title holder and is far more devastating. I will say that. I think that his reign of terror is going to be more consequential than George W. Bush. If this goes the way that they're signaling, and there is a destabilization of Iran in particular, it is truly, I mean, at the domestic front, Trump is worse. All this stuff is true, right? I mean, George W. Bush did the Patriot Act. He walked so Trump could run. All this stuff is theoretical. But if you look at if you look at the actual, like, incalculable death toll of the global war on terror, the destabilization that took, the destabilization that came afterwards or during, until, I would say, like, until this moment, they were competing with one another. From this point onward, I think Trump takes the cake. This isn't to say that Donald Trump was good by any metric, by the way. I'm just trying to highlight how evil the Bush administration was.
And effectively called for regime change in Iran. The president said in those remarks, quote, "When we are finished, take over your government." That was a message
He cares more about Iran's democracy than he cares about the U.S. democracy? No, brother. He does not care about either democracy. He does not care about democracy, period. And he's never cared about Iranian democracy. That's not a real thing. You don't bring about democracy by blowing up schools. You don't bring about democracy by blowing a country up. That's just a lie that they half-heartedly told the American population leading up to this. And I guess some people were silly enough to believe it. But that was never the case. That was never the truth.
Directly to the Iranian people. It will be yours to take. This will probably be your only chance for generations. That is a huge statement, particularly as really over the past year or so, ever since the president went into office for his second term, all of his top advisors were trying not to say that directly. And even though the president didn't say it directly, he came as close as he ever really has to acknowledging that one of the goals in this larger operation is to potentially see if the Iranian people can use this weakened state that the regime now finds itself in to kind of overthrow and push against the government there. So that was a remarkable thing as well. I also think it's worth pointing out, and you mentioned this, Victor, just how disappointed and frustrated the president seemed yesterday when talking about the negotiations that were going on just 2 days ago in Geneva between the president's top advisors, Steve Witkoff, and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, with the Iranians and intermediaries in Switzerland, saying that they did not go far enough. And what we know that the United States wanted from Iran was to, one, be very clear that they had no goals and did not want to ever make a nuclear weapon, and also that they would commit to zero enrichment of uranium, things that the president argued they were not able to get to. And so that is what's led us to this moment. But of course, so many big questions, I think, that many Americans still have about what the future of this is going to look like.
It's really interesting that one of the questions that I keep receiving in the chat over and over again is like the coverage around whether or not Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is dead or not. The Israeli intelligence has often been correct in their assessment whenever they say, like, a high-profile target has actually been assassinated. There are very few instances where they actually get it wrong. They lie about everything else. But The Israeli intelligence is saying that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is dead. Iran is saying that that is not the case. Now, judging by past performance, he could just as well have been killed. The issue here that a lot of people don't comprehend is that is not as meaningful as you think it is. Okay? Even if that was the case, which there's no evidence for at this moment, that's nowhere near as meaningful as you think it is, or meaningful in the direction that you think it might help boost morale of like some on the ground movement of Iranians that are going to now seize control over the government. Okay, as I talked about with Jeremy earlier, there is a line of succession. This is a competent government with a contingency plan built into it, with horizontal expansion and numerous other forms that can seize control over the government and the government functions and continue retaliating against both the United States and also Israel. And not only that, but also there is a regional significance for the Ayatollah as well, as you probably know by now, if you've been in here for a long enough time, that there are Shias all around. There are Shias in Lebanon. There is a robust Shia population in Iraq, in places where there are American military bases, and their response to the assassination of their highest their highest religious figure will not be kind. Okay? But whether he is dead or alive still doesn't change the reality that this is still a functioning government. The notion that you would just like take out the Pope of Iran, right? The Pope of Shia Islam, and then all of a sudden everyone's going to go, oh my God, he's dead, so I guess it's over now, is silly, is stupid. Holy shit, look at this video. That Shahed is flying at you, bro. For the record, and I saw this with my own personal fucking two eyes when I was in Doha. Not to say that this is happening in Doha right now, but if you're wondering, if you're curious as to why the Iranian drones are being expended on like civilian infrastructure in hotels and whatnot, I suspect that the Iranian intelligence has seen that the American military has not fully left they've left the bases, but they've probably not fully left the countries. They're not all in Israel or whatever. I suspect that they're probably staying in those hotels because there's no other reason why they were just like, this is Iran attacking all the Middle East, not Israel. Know your enemy, buddy. Wait, what? Is Iran attacking everyone, not Israel? Know your enemy, bud. Do you think Iran is just attacking Bahrain and the Gulf states for no fucking reason? Are you stupid? I'm literally in the process of explaining to you why they're not only striking American radar and American military bases in the region, but they're also most likely striking at these civilian infrastructure because the American military assets have moved into the civilian infrastructure and they're basically waiting it out. Now, is that actually within the rules of war? I don't think so, but does it fucking matter? Obviously not, right? There are no more rules of war at this point. This is the design that Israel and America had for the rest of the world. Also, it's really funny to be like, know your enemy. If you're Middle Eastern, if you're a Gulf state, know your enemy. It's Iran. It's not fucking America and Israel. Okay, buddy. The reason why I said I saw this with my own two eyes, because when I was in Doha, when I was staying at the hotel that I was staying at, I saw like officers in uniform also staying at the hotel. Scenes of damage at the Kuwait airport following his targeting by a drone. Do you think Iran will respond by launching at America? At America, thousands of miles away? Iran, as far as I know, does not have the ballistic missiles capability of targeting American soil. They will most likely target the American naval assets in the region if they haven't done so thus far. America, in many respects, gets to be as violent as it wants to be because it's actually totally sheltered from the consequences of its endeavors. This is the reason why we get to behave in the violent and unrestrained ways that we want to. I support all. I support all the lies the war is based on, but not the war itself. Old liberal proverb. Now compare and contrast Zohran Kwame Mamdani's statement about going to war with Iran and what the consequences of that might look like versus Gavin Newsom. The corrupt and repressive Iranian regime must never have nuclear weapons. The leadership of Iran must go. But that does not justify the president of the United States engaging in an illegal, dangerous war that will risk the lives of our American service members and our friends without justification to the American people. President Trump is putting Americans at risk abroad because he is unpopular at home. This is the lackluster shit-lib response to Donald Trump literally fucking waging war with Iran. It is mind-boggling. Also, the name of the Green Movement leader is Mir Hussein Musawi, not Ali Akhtar. Sorry, Ali Akhtar is the area that he's in. Also, Samira Zone is in here and has been yelling at me for the last week. Okay? And he's still talking about why is Iran targeting residential buildings? Brother, oh my fucking God. Your countrymen are being slaughtered. And you're still going, why is Iran targeting civilian buildings? You are out of your fucking mind, dude. 200 dead, 90 schoolgirls murdered by American weapons, by American targeting systems in Israeli hands, and you're going, oh, why is Iran retaliating? You are a psycho. You're a fucking psychopath. Jesus Christ. Please, what the fuck? This is what we were talking about. This is what I was saying for weeks and weeks on end. The notion that like Americans care about liberal democracy in Iran is so fucking stupid because America wants to blow up Iran. America wants to kill even more protesters than the Iranian government did. And you're over here thinking that this is going to be a liberatory act. It's not. Oh. Anyway. Ay, 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 man.
And that has been a big struggle.
You can criticize both? No, you can't criticize both. What do you mean you can criticize both? What are you talking about, dude? What are you talking about? The Iranian government's repressive elements or the Iranian government's repression is inconsequential if we're talking about tens of thousands more people dying in the hands of a foreign state. What the fuck do you mean? The actual response, the actual repression from the state in and of itself is completely unacceptable. But once again, as I kept repeating over and over again, like you're literally looking at one strike, two strikes on two different girls' schools that killed 9 to 13-year-old girls by the dozens, like 85 plus 9-year-old girls died in a fucking school. Like, what are we talking about? What the fuck are we talking about? There is no both sides. There was no both sides in fucking Gaza either. There's no both sides in fucking Gaza. There's no both sides. Is there a both sides in Ukraine? Do you spend a good deal of time talking about like Ukrainian repression? Oh, Zelensky is not allowing democracy to thrive in Ukraine. I don't give that argument any fucking credence. It's ridiculous. Yes, I know CBC released my interview today. Hasan Piker comes to Canada. Comments are turned off. Oh, brother. They claimed it was the IRGC misfire. Oh, wow. You know, I was born yesterday, and I didn't actually watch this happen. I didn't actually see this exact same fucking response over and over again. So I was born, I'm a baby. I'm a baby with a baby's brain. So of course I'm going to go, oh, it must have been its own misfire. Oh, shit, dude. Is there any way for you to check if your YouTube stream is restricted? Why are you saying that? I don't think it is. Why? Because there's not a lot of people watching on YouTube. Is that what you think?